Hey, welcome back. The maintenance has concluded and the servers have come back up, which means it's time to check out the new patch. This week is not a big one, let's get right into it. First, new loot has been added to Hall of Illusion and Azure Breath Island. Azure Breath Island now has the Faded Ring, as well as a new pair of gold earrings. And Hall of Illusion has a new gold necklace, as well as a new gold ring. And in Azure Breath Island, the fungi farming method has been removed. If you didn't know, you used to be able to enter Azure Breath Island, aggro fungis, and they would just immediately explode and die, and give you 10,000 Kina as well as loot, which made it really easy to cap Kina even on ults, but now that's gone. As you can see. Next, adjustments were made to PvP damage boost as well as PvP damage tolerance. As you know, last week they separated PvE and PvP damage boost as well as tolerance in order to individually balance the stat better. But with that there was a bit of an oversight, as PvP damage boost as well as tolerance were capped, and PvP gear alone was basically capping PvP damage tolerance, rendering a lot of buffs useless, and as a result indirectly buffing PvE gear. Now that has been fixed, as the cap for PvP damage boost as well as tolerance has been lifted. To make sure that tolerance isn't too overbearing though, they made it so damage boost floors at 20%. In practice, this is not going to change much damage-wise, but this is just going to make defensive buff stacking in PvP slightly less effective overall. Next, the extra steps of the Abyss Weekly bare minimum morality were removed. These were the ones that had the PvP potential stones, and the potential stone loot from corridors have been removed. Kyra and Argos have been renamed, and Pantheon paintings have been added as drops from the new world bosses, the ones that appear after sieges. The stats of Kyra and Argos have been raised to avoid them dying in 5 seconds, although there's no doubt that's still gonna happen. And the appearance of Kyra has been slightly adjusted to make it more fair for both factions. The topography of Middle Resh has been slightly adjusted, namely some mushrooms have been removed to avoid unfair advantages, and a couple of bug fixes have been brought to the Sugar games. You can no longer get pulled or pushed out of wind streams. Next, a couple of modifications as well as bug fixes have been brought up, namely some boss walls not appearing has been fixed. Consumables now make more distinct noises. People who played AION 1 may recognize it. Eric may not have gotten any buffs this week, but at least like the protection and noble energy no longer make the really annoying buzzing noise. Thank God for that. And a whole lot of problems have been fixed in Azure Breath Island. Namely, the first boss will no longer stun, the second boss will actually remove the puddles on the ground after dying, and a bunch of bugs with the dash and pillar mechanics has been fixed on the final boss. Next, class balance. First, impact hit on melee classes has been equalized across all melee classes. Long story short, this gives more CC chance to Assassin and less to Gladiator. Gladiator will recoup the CC chance in another skill, as you will see in a bit. And Survival Willpower as well as Contract now gives slightly more CC resist, with 0.5% extra at level 1 and 0.5% extra per level. Life Leech has received a couple of changes. Namely, the battle log will now be more accurate, and the healing received stat will no longer impact it. Stealth will no longer break if you get hit at the same time as you stealth. And now let's move on to Gladiator. On the battle preparation effect of Runer's Blow and Leaping Slam, you will now gain an additional 15% status effect chance buff, which pretty much counteracts the impact hit change, and is actually a buff, as this will impact all of your Theostones, as well as your CCs. Mocking Blade's PvE damage has been increased by a decent amount, but the Life Leech was nerfed from 15% to 4%. Crushing Wave no longer requires you to crit to Life Leech. Aerial Snare now does 50% extra damage to bosses for a total of 100%. Murderous Burst PvE damage was increased by 30%. And Rage Burst was changed. It now deals damage and reduces the enemy attack power by 10% for 10 seconds, as well as increase your PvE damage boost by 10% and PvP damage boost by 5% for 10 seconds. And activates Overhead Slam for 10 seconds. The first spec of Lunge now increases Smite by 5%. Life Stealing Blade Life Leech was nerfed from 7% to 2%. And Tenaciousness now removes dots when used. On Templar, Punishing Strike, recovery frames were improved, and the same thing was done to Judgment. Annihilation now deals 50% extra damage to bosses. Warding Strike now deals 30% extra PvE damage, and the attack buff of Battlefield Flag was doubled. And finally, on Flash Rampage, CDR spec was fixed. On Assassin, Hardcore no longer needs to crit to activate the Life Leech, the Shadow Step teleportation range was doubled, and a large number of tooltips were fixed. On Ranger, the Drill Dart, you no longer need to crit to activate the Life Leech, and the 50% chance to reset cooldown on crit was changed to a second use. Concentrated Fire now deals 10% more PvE damage, and the nerf to Griffin Arrow as well as supporting fire were reverted, and now they do 5% more PvE damage. And supporting fire absorption was nerfed from 5% to 1.5%. On Shanta, Spinning Strike now gives a stackable buff that increases your critical damage boost as well as your healing boost by 5% for up to 3 times, for a total of 15%. And the third spec was changed to deal more damage to single targets instead of packs of mobs, which means that you will be doing more damage on bosses and in 1v1 PvP. Dark Rush and Piercing Strike, the skills are now mobile by default, and the mobile spec was changed to a force critical hit, and the PvP damage was boosted by 20%. The Wave Blow, Storm Chain, Impactful Crush, and Crushing Blow, the PvE damage was boosted by 20%, and Promise of the Wind was boosted by 30% in PvE. The health condition on Promise of Earth has been removed, and on Recuperation, the Hot effect, when used, now stacks up to 2 times. Guardian's Blessing getting removed when changing map was fixed, and the extra incoming healing on Protection Circle was removed. Carrick got fucking nothing. I'm not upset, you are. But more seriously, Noble Energy was changed to be a 1-minute cooldown from 5 minutes, making it more usable. But if you use it in PvP, it is now dispellable by Assassins and Spirit Masters. Use steals no longer stack if you have multiple clerics in the group. The Salvation bug where it was not usable at level 20 on certain CC was fixed, and dots now get removed when you use it. And a number of tooltip problems were fixed. On Spirit Master, the proxy, the overall range was buffed. Intermittent excessive dimensional control from High Spirit was fixed, and a problem with Elemental Fusion not getting activated was fixed. And a number of tooltip problems were also fixed. On Sork, Inferno now deals an additional 20% damage in both PvP and PvE, and the second spec was buffed. The consecutive use of Bitter Cold Wind not applying the first Bitter Cold Wind was fixed. The PvP damage of Firestorm was buffed by 30%, as well as Winter Shackle and Winter Illusion, and Bitter Cold Wind PvP damage was buffed by 20%. And just like for the other Invuln, Hibernation now removes dots when you use it. And that will be everything for the patch notes. Now let's take a look at the data mining side of things, which is actually quite interesting. Now, as usual, the data mining is done courtesy of Ukidi on my Discord. If you would like to see the data mining happen in real time, or you would like to browse the previous data mining, the link for my Discord will be in the description below. Now first, we have a lineup of incoming skins and weapon skins of a collab with a girl K-pop group, apparently, Chromis 9. We have a new daily dungeon coming that will give coins. We don't really have information on what those coins will give you though. And this is the icon of the new daily dungeon. An icon for a new skill for cleric was added into the client with no further information, and a couple of icons for skins were added, red. Now, it was not mentioned in the patch notes, but they also added new assets for every different type of reset tickets in the game, and this is already in the game. Like, as you can see, the new daily dungeon ticket now looks like this, and the new looter ticket looks like this, for example. New pets were added as well. And we finally have some map data for Morheim and Eltnen. This is Morheim. Again, if you want to see it, you can join the Discord and browse it by yourself. It is currently very incomplete, but you can recognize some areas, like this is the Fire Temple area, this is the Morheim Fortress area, you can see a bit of the Mao area here, and this is Eltnen. You can see the Eltnen Fortress here, you can see a Legion boat here, the Eltnen Desert, and what is probably going to be the Kishar area. And we have some music for the upcoming collab as well as the upcoming daily dungeon. Once again, I'm not going to play them here, obvious reasons, but you can take a listen for yourself on the Discord. And that will cover everything for the data mining. Once again, if you like the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I stream this game several times a week on both Twitch and YouTube, so make sure to swing by and say hi. Until next time, take care.